You know who else is a great teammate? It is Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor, coming to us live from the Wells Fargo Center. Charlie, before we get into some individual performances, just thoughts on the game, if there are any feelings in the locker room or in the coaches' post-game, whatever. What did you think of the game tonight? What are they saying about the game?
Yeah, I didn't think much of this game, and I got the sense that the players didn't think much of this game either. The main word that Scott Lawton, who was actually the first guy we spoke to on the team out of the guys that were in the locker room, the word he used was disconnected. That the team just is playing disconnected hockey right now. John Tortorella used the term playing in fives, like a 5-man unit, that they're not playing in fives right now. And that was what I saw for the bulk of this game. And, Travis Sanheim and Scott Lawton, they both theorized that maybe it's that, so many guys are trying to do everything themselves. And because that's not going to get the job done, especially when this isn't a team with a bunch of superstars. Like, yeah, if you have, 6 guys that are making all-star teams every year, maybe you can have those guys do it all themselves. But the Flyers aren't built to do that. They are built to get things done as a 5-man unit or a 4-man unit or however many guys are on the ice at a given time. And they're just not doing it right now. And the result is not just losing hockey, because they're obviously losing games and that's not what they're trying to do, but it also makes it like pretty unwatchable hockey. It's ugly watching this team right now. And even, I thought it was very interesting that Scott Lawton noted, because, yesterday was a fun hockey game. A lot happened. The top line was great. They score 7 goals. So it's like, oh, they can score again. But Scott Lawton after this game basically said, like, look, yeah, we scored 7 goals yesterday, but we had 6 shots on goal through 2 periods. He's like, that wasn't a very good game either. So I give him credit for being honest and not trying to act like last game was this brilliant performance where they were all firing on all cylinders. They clearly weren't. And this is just kind of a continuation, or at least I think in their minds, it was a continuation of the problems from the first 2 periods of Saturday's game.
Yeah, we kind of celebrated in yesterday's post game just because it was fun to watch. But we were like, listen, that wasn't, for the most part, good. That wasn't good. They just happened to score a bunch. And like you've said a bunch of times, Charlie, when you score, people are more happy. And that's kind of what we've seen tonight. They scored in the final 3 minutes. So that kind of made it interesting, but not the best performance. Aleksei Kolosov made his debut tonight. We thought he was up and down, but there's something there. What did you think of him in his first NHL action?
I thought he was mostly good. I thought the one goal he allowed to Cole Caulfield was awful. And that's the one where it does put a damper on the overall performance, because he needs to stop that. Like, that is a short side goal where he just needs to seal that post, and he just didn't. And you can't give up one really, really bad goal per game if you want to be a legitimate NHL goalie. That said, the rest of the game, I thought he looked perfectly adequate, perfectly acceptable. And I will say that John Tortorella, the first question to John Tortorella today actually was like, were there any positives you can take from this? And the very first positive he noted was, I thought our goalie played well. I thought he made some big saves. So he came away feeling pretty good about Kolosov. Now, granted, he obviously doesn't want to bury the kid. I'm sure there's some internal politics going on here with like them wanting to keep him happy. They gave him the start for a reason, and it wasn't just because Ivan Fedotov's been struggling. They're trying to have it so he doesn't go back to the KHL or doesn't request a loan again. So that's part of it. But I do think it's notable that when asked for positives, the first thing he said was the goalie, because that tells me that while before the game, I specifically asked John Tortorella, I said, is this a 1-game thing, or is he going to be here for a while? And Torts more or less said, well, we'll see. We don't know yet. We'll see. I get the sense, based on what he said after the game, that I don't think this is just going to be a 1-game thing. If he had struggled, it would have been. But if Tortorella came away happy, like, let's be honest, what they saw from Ivan Fedotov, there's no way John Tortorella has any trust in Ivan Fedotov right now. Who knows? Maybe he can figure it out at some point down the road. Whether he gets the opportunity or not, I guess we'll see. But right now, Tortorella has zero faith in Fedotov. And I think in Kolosov, he at least saw a goalie that doesn't absolutely terrify him to put him in the net. And I think that probably should lead to Kolosov staying. That's my guess.
No, that seems to check out. And Emil Andrae made his debut at the NHL level with the Flyers today. What did you think about his performance?
Yeah, good first game of the year, I thought, for Andrae. Obviously, he had some games last year, making the team out of camp, so it's not his first ever NHL game, but his first game with the team this season. I thought he was fine. He had that one really good bank pass to Joel Farabee. I think it was in the second period, where he showed off some of his creativity. He showed his compete in board battles. He's not the biggest guy, but he's not the kind of guy who shies away from contact. He's willing to not quite, be physical, although he certainly does throw hits from time to time, which is surprising given the fact that he's 5'9". But he has compete. He has tenacity, and he doesn't shy away from board battles, from puck battles. I like that. I like the passing ability. Look, I don't think he was incredible, because I don't think anybody on the Flyers was incredible in this game. I mean, maybe you could say Travis Sanheim had it going, but he even made some mistakes. He had a couple failed clears on the lead up to the Cole Caulfield goal, so he wasn't perfect either. But I do think that Andrae showed enough to stay. That said, it did seem like when we talked to John Tortorella before the game that he doesn't want Zamula to be out of the lineup too long. He more or less said, like, I want to give him a game to watch from above and maybe get his head right. So I don't know if this is going to be a long stay for Andrae, if they want to get Zamula back in maybe as soon as Tuesday. I don't know. I think Andrae played well enough to stay in the lineup. But that said, I don't think they believe Andrae is a finished product, and they do want to keep Zamula in this mix. So I don't know if he stays in, but I think Andrae was fine. I liked his game overall, I would say.
Yeah, the physicality part, Charlie, that stood out to me. I think it was in the first period, like one of Andre's first shifts, had a good seal off and finished the hit along the boards on a rush play. It was one of the best hits I've seen a defenseman throw this season for the Flyers. I was really I wouldn't say really impressed, but I liked Andre's game. We'll talk more about that stuff on Monday's show. I want to get your opinion because this game was very boring, and I spent a lot of it in a Twitter fight with Habs fans. So yeah, I mean they're nuts.
They are crazy. Yes.
So I want to get your take on the Coots, Doc, Arbor Jackeye, Sealer whole situation. What did you think happened, and what do you think how it should have been called? What was your take on everything?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll go through kind of my thoughts. Number one, the hit, if you even want to call it, from Couturier on Kirby Dach, like, to me, watching that seemed like, and I think even a couple Montreal reporters tweeted this out, like, that seemed like Couturier had the opportunity to absolutely blow him up and decided not to. Like, he tried to not blow him up, and because Dach, if he wanted to, he could have, Mike Richards to basically, and instead he tries to like avoid him, and then Jackeye is Jackeye. He's that's his role. He's defending his guy. Obviously, I think if he would have actually fought Sean Couturier, and Sean Couturier has fought, he obviously fought in the preseason. He's fought a bit in his NHL career, but I think Jackeye would have beat the crap out of him, to be quite honest with you. And Nick Sealer, the good teammate that he is, realized that and was like, there's no freaking way I'm going to let my captain get beat up on by Arbor Jackeye. And he did exactly what he should have done. I think, like, by the letter of the law, Sealer probably should have gotten a penalty for being the third man in. So I think if you're talking about whether it was the right call, I think by the law, it probably wasn't. The fact that Jackeye ends up leaving that sequence with the only penalty. However, and I don't think the officials had a particularly good game, but I do think they got this one right in spirit. Like, that was a fair outcome. Jackeye was very clearly trying to instigate that fight, like, obvious. And Sean Couturier, basically, it was clear he didn't want to fight, but it's also like, I'm not going to be a coward. Fine, I guess I'll fight you just because, like, you're questioning my manhood. So sure. It was clear that Jackeye instigated that thing. It was clear that he was instigating off of a play that wasn't dirty and wasn't a penalty. And then Sealer was just going in to defend his teammate more than anything else. So probably should have been a penalty, at least on Sealer. But I think if you actually watch the play and use some discretion, which the officials clearly did, I think they got it right, because the only person who deserved a penalty there was Jackeye, even if by the letter of the law, Sealer probably broke it by being the third man in on a fight that I guess they determined never actually happened because no one got fighting majors.
That's how you get out of it, is no one gets a fighting major.
Right.
I believe one guy deserved a penalty on the play, and it's Doc. I believe he's the one. He should have gone for embellishment. That starts the whole thing. Because Arbor Xhekaj is a lunatic and just sees his teammate throw his head back like he's JFK, and he reacts to that. And Sean Couturier is like, well, yeah, if I skate away from you and say no, you're going to chase me down and punch me in the back of the head because I just saw you do that 2 weeks ago. Like, I think the only one who deserved the penalty there was him, but it all worked out fine. Where was the retaliation for Michkov getting blatantly either elbowed or butt-ended in the face in front of the net? Like, purposeful targeting of your best player, young guy who we said we were going to protect, and you're down 4-1. You're not trying all that hard. I don't know. Maybe mess someone up. What'd you think?
Yeah, I don't know. These are the types of things that I don't fret over nearly as much as you do. But that said, it matters to the team. You kind of saw it, I believe, what was it, in Calgary too, where there were a couple hits and the guys just kind of didn't really do much. You do get the sense a little bit that, like, when there's not a lot of juice, maybe it's just not the first thing that comes to guys' heads. Like, oh, I need to go out there. Like Delorier needs to go out there and fight somebody. The fact that Sealer defended Couturier tells me that they are still a very tight-knit group. And part of me just is like, do you really need to fight after every single thing? Like, I don't know. That's a little much, but Bill, I get why you're frustrated, why you're like, nah, I want them to fight after every single thing. But like, to me, it's not that big of a deal, but I understand why you would think it would be a big deal.
I make it a big deal because they've told me it's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that we're driving back in the car from New York with Matvei Michkov, showing him Nick Delorier fights, saying, this is your best friend. Well, someone needs to do it. I was just disappointed by that, but I was disappointed by basically the entire team tonight. So I guess singling out any one instance is kind of pointless. Charlie, what's your opinion on Eagles' chance at Flyers games?
I would say, generally speaking, I am very opposed to them. I think they're stupid. In this case, though, I think it honestly was warranted because it was more about expressing frustration with the Flyers, and they deserved it. They were playing with, I'm not going to say they were playing with no effort. I think they were trying, but they just had zero juice. They, as Lawton said, they were disconnected. They just weren't playing together. And I understand why it's a Sunday night. Fans are restless. They're annoyed. I mean, by then the arena was basically half full. A lot of people had left, so there were a few brave ones that stuck it out and nearly got to see an exciting comeback because they made it interesting against all odds later on in the game. But you know what? When the team's playing that poorly, to me, it's fair game. And these are the only times I am open to an Eagles chant. I think the thing that was really jarring was that it happened in the middle of play. That was the middle finger from the fans to the players. Like, this is how low we think of you right now, that we're going to do an Eagles chant while you're like skating up ice. And honestly, with the way they played in most of this game, I get it.
It was so loud. That's one of the loudest ones I've heard in that building. Like, I heard it so clear on the broadcast. So, like, what changed in the last 2 minutes to kick them into overdrive there and actually do stuff?
It's a really good question. And the only thing I can think of, truthfully, is just that confidence in hockey is so big, because this was a team for most of the game. And I said it on Twitter a couple of times. I've said it on the show. It just didn't seem like they had any juice. And then the minute that Sanheim gets that goal, suddenly they have juice because they think, oh, we can actually do things. Things will work if we try them. And then boom, suddenly they're flying all around. Same thing kind of happened in that Capitals game in the third period. Like, they get a couple goals. Fedotov makes a big save on Dubois. And suddenly it's like, oh, wait a minute, we can play hockey now. And I think that Sanheim goal kind of was that. Like, Sanheim makes a really good individual play. And suddenly everyone just has like the weight of the world lifted off their shoulders for a little bit. And that's great. It shows that they are better than this, or they can be better than this, I guess, in theory. Problem is that you can't be skating around with like weights tied to your legs for 40 straight minutes. Like, you're not going to win many games if you do that. And we're seeing they're not winning many games.
Now, tonight was a real procrastinator special, like a 4-3 final to that game where you played for about 3 minutes. That's a pretty good outcome. That's not bad for a team that really didn't look good all night. So, all right, Charlie, let's get 3 stars and let's get the hell out of here. Hit us with star number 3.
Okay, fair enough. Star number 3, I guess I will go with Travis Sanheim, who I thought was good. Not perfect, certainly not perfect in this game, but made plays with the puck. And it's funny, like, I don't think he was immune from the disconnection issues. I think he was part of that. There were times he looked disconnected from his teammates. The difference between him and everyone else is that everyone was trying to do individual plays. He was actually executing the individual plays. Like the individual efforts that he was doing were actually working because he was just on. And John Tortorella specifically praised Travis Sanheim after this game. After praising Kolosov, he said, Sanheim's been a major bright spot. He's playing really well, and we need him to play really well with Cam York out. So he's happy with Travis Sanheim, and we know, a few years ago he kind of hated the guy. So if Tortorella praises Sanheim, I know it's probably like accurate, because there have been long periods where he hated everything about Travis Sanheim's game. So Sanheim, not perfect, but certainly worthy of a star.
John Tortorella and I, very similar. All right, Charlie, hit us with star number 2.
Yeah, star number 2, I'm going to go with Nick Suzuki. Just a strong all-around game from a strong all-around player. I've always been a big Nick Suzuki guy. I remember when the Habs went on their run to the Cup final. One of my friends is a diehard Montreal fan, and our whole friend group basically just was like, screw it, let's all jump on the Habs bandwagon and root with him and like go to bars and watch games. And I bought a Nick Suzuki t-shirt. So I've long been a Nick Suzuki fan. He's long been my favorite player to watch on that team. And I thought he was really good in this game. Obviously scores a goal and an assist. And it's just, he's not an elite player, but he's like an awesome second line center. It's just that on this team, he has to be a first line center because they don't have anybody else. But really good player. Any team in the league would love to have Nick Suzuki, and he had a really good game tonight.
All right, last but not least, first star of the game.
First star of the game, I'm going to go with Brendan Gallagher for 2 reasons. Number one, he produces. He gets to what I guess it's not the game-winning goal now because the Flyers scored twice, but like that game is tied coming out of the first period. The Flyers weren't playing that well, but it was tied. Gallagher's the one who gets the goal that really turns things and lets them dominate the entirety of the second period. So Gallagher sparks them on the score sheet. But I thought just as importantly, he got in Matvei Michkov's head. He did. And that's Brendan Gallagher. He is a guy who needles people. He agitates and he chirps. And if Matvei Michkov is more concerned about fighting Brendan Gallagher than he is about being Matvei Michkov on the ice, that's a win for the Montreal Canadiens. And it was just a classic Brendan Gallagher game. Like, that's what he does. He tries to get under your skin. And this was the first time we saw someone successfully get under Matvei Michkov's skin. And that's his job. His job is to produce points and get under the skin of players who can be thrown off their game. And I think Michkov was a little thrown off his game tonight. So for that reason, Gallagher's the number 1 star.
Yeah, this was definitely not Misha's best game. I did like the several Michigan attempts, but you got to pull that off. You got to get that. You got to at least get the puck up. All right, Charlie. That is it. That is Charlie O'Connor, Philadelphia's number 1 beat writer, coming to us live from the Wells Fargo Center. He'll be back with us tomorrow at 4 o'clock for our live show. I will talk to you then, Charlie.
All right. Thanks, guys.
We all silly like the mayor.